and 2 to 3 feet of dirt would be taken out. That parking lot would be lowered so it is more level with the football field. It wouldn't be completely level, but it would come down. Again, those rocks would be replaced with concrete, and the parking lot would be all the same surface. This is a different view again of the south end of the parking lot there south of the grade school. That cone was placed by John Rohrbach prior to him retiring. That is covering a manhole cover that's out there. The cone was put there to keep cars from driving over it so that the lid did not pop up and cause any damage to anyone's car, or that someone doesn't step on it and get injured. This is a view of the current concession stand and the south view of the press box. After speaking at the CalVesta meeting last week, it was determined that this concession stand has been there since pre-1954. We don't have an exact date, but we know it's been there at least that long. Again, you can kind of see the unevenness of the concrete there in front of the concession stand, which can be a tripping hazard. The press box that's there was, part of that was brought in from the sand pit south of town and moved in, and then the structure was put on top. If you've ever been in it, you know that there's a little sway to it, and that the steps going up, there's a big, like a 20-inch gap on the top step that's a little tricky when you're coming down. This is a view of the current part of the bleachers, the cement bleachers that are there, and also the rest of the bleachers. Those blue bleachers were moved over to the home side when the new visitor stands were constructed in early 2000. So again, those bleachers have some years on them. They've got some wear and tear also. So the proposal for the bond for the football stadium renovations would be a newly constructed cement parking lot. There would be 106 parking stalls for elementary parking and event parking. There would also be, we'll show the picture here in a minute, there will also be some on-street parking included that could be utilized for drop-off or pickup at the grade school. There would be a newly constructed concession stand that would meet health code requirements, and newly constructed restroom facilities that would be adjoining to the concession stand. Again, to be closer to the football field and would be ADA compliant. There would be gated fencing for children and volunteer safety. With constructing the new parking lot and the fact that there's going to be more cars in there, there's going to be more traffic, and kids like to run around at the ball games. There would be a fence that would be constructed around the bleachers and the concession stand to keep the kids inside to prevent injury. It would also help with the ticket sales done by the community. Right now, the Lions Club has to have 4 volunteers at each ball game at the football field to take tickets. This would eliminate the volunteers that need to find to 2 people per game. There would be a newly constructed press box, and the seating capacity at the football field would be increased to 1,500 seats. That number was came up by a couple of methods. So in the last few years, Hugoton High School has completed a renovation of their football stadium, and when they built their football field, they put in 2,000 seats at their stadium. They had discovered that 2,000 is too much. So Holcomb has also recently done a football field renovation. They put in 1,000 seats and determined that that wasn't enough. Scott City has just in the last year completed a football field renovation. They put in 1,500 seats and say, that's pretty good. Again, figuring up this number, there is a building standard of 18 inches per person for seat space. Now, I didn't measure today, but I know I take up more than 18 inches when I sit down, and while I like most of you, I like to have a little bit of space. So again, taking that into account, that they came up with approximately 1,500 seats. Now, Chris on our committee did go out to the current football field and measure all the stadium seating we have, and taking those measurements divided by 18, we have approximately seating for 1,133 people right now. So really, that seating capacity wouldn't be changing that number very much. So this is a picture of the proposed improvements to the football field. As you can see, there's the new 106 car parking lot. With the on-street parking, it has been mentioned that the on-street parking could be barricaded off during the week to be used for the school buses to pull in there to drop off and pick up kids. There will be a sidewalk that leads over to the grade school, and that would leave the Circle Drive open for the parents dropping off kids in cars. You also can see the new concession stand and restroom building there toward the south end, and the new 1,500 seat bleacher with the press box. And then that whole complex with the stands and the concession stand would be enclosed with a fence. The driveways on the south end and the west end, again, with lowering that parking lot and taking 2 to 3 feet of dirt out, will help to decrease the amount of slope of the driveways. This will accommodate the activity buses that have to pull into that parking lot, because right now, a lot of those buses drag bottom as they're pulling into the parking lot. So that would alleviate that. This is a picture of Scott City's current football stands that were just recently completed in the last year. So to kind of give you an idea of what 1,500 seats would look like. Again, on the end, you can see the ramp, which falls into the ADA compliance, so that disabled patrons coming to the games could still get into the stands. Okay, so I'm going to turn the mic over to Jara, and she's going to tell you about the weight room and the multi-purpose room proposal.
Okay, so first we'll start off with the challenges. So here's some of the challenges we have. Our current weight room is too small for the amount of students we have in classes, and we'll show you a picture a little bit of right now, because of the number of students that want to enroll in our weight room, in our strength and conditioning classes. We have them inside the weight room and also outside the weight room, which makes us, because of that, for safety reasons, we have 2 teachers monitor that class. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we show you the pictures. Our current health classes are using, we have 3 sections of PE and health, and they are using the auditorium for their classes on the days that they have classroom for classwork and not in the gym working out. And our space restraints have in the past always limited our junior high students to having 8th hour athletic practice. Now, at the last board meeting, our board has directed us to go ahead and have junior high practice after school starting next year. That's how we're going to build the master schedule, because as we continue to look at our academic data, we believe that it's showing us that we need an extra hour in the classroom. So what that will limit now is our practice times. When can they practice? Is it going to be early morning? Is it going to be later after, are we going to have to stack practices, one right after school and one after that? Or are we going to have to crowd a lot of kids in a gym? Those are kind of our choices with our current facilities. Our wrestling over the years has not had a dedicated space for practices. They've been moved around. This year we moved them to the old gym. And we haven't had a facility that's just for wrestling. We've moved them to different spaces around over the years, is what I understand. And like I said, they currently practice in the old gym this year. So here's a picture of a weights class, and when they created this, they blurred out the faces. So this is one class that, so this is part of the class inside the weight room working out, and then this is the rest of that class working out. And so what they do every day is they drag their mats out onto the tile floor. We don't put it on the wood floor, but onto the tile floor, and they lift, half of the class lifts out there. So again, we have to have 2 teachers because for safety reasons, it's important to, when they're in 2 different rooms, we have to have adult eyes on both spaces. So some of our proposed solutions with the bond. This creates a weights and conditioning room size per current occupancy standards. What I understand is that the current room we have would, by building guidelines, we could put 20 to 21 students in there, and our average is about 30 per strength and conditioning class. So this would accommodate the larger class sizes. It gives the wrestling team a dedicated space for practice and allows for additional opportunities in the off season. So our cheerleading would practice in there a lot in the fall. Often in the mornings, if you notice, if you take your kids to school early in the mornings, you see our marching band practicing before school a lot, and they come in with wet, wet up to their ankles a lot, so they could practice up in this facility on the wet mornings that they're practicing for their marching band shows. We could have baseball and softball have hitting practice up there. We could have our fitness classes. Once we can eliminate having to have 2 teachers per strength and conditioning class, that will obviously open up one of those teachers for more fitness type classes, and we could host a fitness class up there. So, the opportunities are limitless for that multi-purpose room. Creates freedom for junior high academic scheduling. Again, moving that the academic class back in and the athletics out of the school day. That's what's, the space is what's held that up until this point. As we've studied our data, and we've been communicating to our board for a long time about what we think our data looks like and what we think we need to do to be able to increase the academic standards. We would like an extra hour a day to do academics with junior high. So when we can move that out of the day, or when we are moving that out of the day, we have a lot more freedom to manipulate our schedule and get teachers teaching the right classes in the right hours. And I've already talked about allowing junior high to move outside of the school day. Doing that, moving junior high out of the school day, that gives us also 3 to 4 teachers who coach that last hour of the day. Now they're back in the classroom for another academic hour before they have to go coach. And they can teach an academic class then as well. And opens the old gym that we have down here back up for a basketball practice, which a junior high could practice there right after school instead of wait and practice up here after the high school or high school after junior high, however that would be decided like that, okay? So this is what the proposed drawings look like. So you can see here is our current existing facility. This is the new part in color here. So here we have 2 classroom spaces that are added. One class that would meet in one of these we envision right now would be our health class that's currently meeting in this facility, which then that would open up this facility when our health class is in here, our forensics class cannot meet in here. So that would open up this facility for our forensics class, which if you could have been in our building today. For those of you that were, it was a really cool day. We hosted the High Plains League Forensics Meet and had a lot of students here. And our forensics team is growing and flourishing. We have 70 kids on our forensics team right now. And so fitting in a classroom is tough, and they really need the auditorium space. And they're talking to me about they want to do a 1-act play. And absolutely, let's get it done, but they need a stage to practice that and things like that. So our health class our vision is our health class would take at least one of these classrooms. And then you can see up here would be the weight room facility, and the machines in there that's just for example, okay? That's not a decision of that's what's gonna be in there. Of course, we'll use our current weights that we have. Our weightlifting students have put on 2 different, what are those called, competitions, and they're trying to raise money to finish we'd have to have more weights to fill our larger facility. And then down the middle is a turf strip. You can see where there's the track lanes to practice on speed and things like that. Then the rest of it would be just a different regular flooring. Well, there we go. And then the top floor of that would be where our wrestling and multi-purpose room. You can see the size of that was chosen by that we could fit 2 wrestling mats. That's what our wrestling team has always had to practice. We sure don't want to go backwards for that program, and so that's what the size of the room is for 2 wrestling mats. And then you can see there's storage in there where they could roll up their mats when we have other things going on in that space. And I'll go back to you for
Everybody was handed out a note card. Those are for writing questions down and everything. We will take questions as soon as this is over, so I'll probably go around and gather them up here in a little bit. So if you got questions, hand them to the end of the row and I'll come down and pick them up.
Okay, so, of course, if this bond is passed, we have to pay for it somehow, so we're going to talk about the financial impact. So the total bond proposed is in the amount of not to exceed $4,395,000 to pay for the project plus financing costs. It would be a standard 20-year general obligation bond. Interest rates was estimated at 4.25%, are still low. However, I don't know if you guys pay attention to this today, the Fed did not raise the interest rate. So there's a possibility we might be able to get a lower interest rate, but for planning purposes, it was estimated 4.25%. So the plan by the school board currently is to use the annual wind farm payments that are received by the district to cover the cost of the bond payments. The wind farm gifts to USD 102 in the past 5 years have averaged approximately $394,000 a year. The estimated payment for the bond will be $341,000 a year. Currently, the district is in a 20-year contract with the wind farms. They are 5 years, again, like I said, into the contract, so there are 15 years of payments left. And again, the belief is as long as the wind farms are exempt from property tax, the gifts will continue. If the wind farm payments disappear, the estimated mill levy requirement to make the bond payments would be 5.63 mills. And that would include a tax increase on the property tax of 5.63 mils. Okay, and those are all of our slides. I'll turn it back to Darren and he'll start answering questions.
Pretty quick. And we're going to read these off and answer these questions. Now, if there's several questions that are about the same thing, I'm going to try and group them together and answer one question, if that's okay with you. That way we can get out of here and get on with our evening. This question is, how long are the wind farm payments contracted? When do they end on current agreement? If before this bond is paid off, how would payments be made then? Mr. Mike Stegman.
The current agreement, it's not a contract.
It's not a contract, it's an agreement. It's an agreement with the county. And as long as windmill payments are paid to the county, then we'll get our prorated share. I just looked at the end of that contract or agreement today. There is no ending date. It doesn't say it starts in 2012 and ends in 2032. It says it goes until the windmills decide not to pay any more money to the county. We asked the question to one of the windmill providers about that because there's been a lot of questions. What if they go away? We keep hearing about windmills going away for this or that reason. Their answer to us was, do you think we built all this millions of dollars of infrastructure to walk away? The life of a windmill is about 20 years. They said, but we have all the infrastructure besides that's already here, so why would we walk away from that? Why wouldn't we just continue repairing our windmills or refurbishing our windmills? In 20 years, they're going to look different than they do today. So the question is when does it end? It ends when they get taken off or get put on the tax rolls, I guess. Is that the question?
Yeah.
If the windmill money did go away, then it would go on the tax roll just like it showed here at 5.6 mils approximately. So say that happened 2 years from now, then your total levy on both bond issues would be still around 10 mils, which is probably a third less than most school districts in the state. Not that that makes a lot of difference, but that's a fact. Did I answer the question?
Yes. The question, I'll repeat again. How long are wind farm payments contracted? When do they end on current agreements? And if before this bond is paid off, then how would payments be made?
Right. So it's not a contract, it's an agreement. And there is no ending date on the agreement. They gave a sheet of paper that showed estimates for planning purposes, was my understanding. It doesn't say that on the sheet that I had. But we're already bringing in more, or they're already gifting more funds than there is on the planning document.
Next question, are you concerned about the practices packed on top of our already long school day when junior high is moved to after school?
A typical junior high practice will go for an hour, hour and a half, no longer than 2. On a good Tuesday night, a high school practice might go up to 2.5 hours. So that was a concern, but looking at the academic data and the needs that we need in the school for academics, basically we had to make a decision. Are we going to add academic classes and open up that, or are we going to go with the athletic side and continue where we were at? We chose to go the academic route. New calendar has a shorter day that we voted in, even though it's 15 minutes. I believe that's a step in the right direction to get practices started sooner. With the new facilities, that opens up another gym. Our current gym utilization with the elementary gym and the old gym. Winter sports is where the bottleneck would be. Fall and spring will pretty much take care of itself. But winter sports is where it goes to. We didn't feel that it was right to move the wrestling team again, because that's a building and growing program for us, and having a dedicated space. To be honest with you, wrestling's been the one that's been yo-yoed around. Every time when they were using the auxiliary gym, every time we had a basketball game, didn't matter if it was high school or junior high, they had to practice in the morning. Now we have a consistent way to practice. Where we're at now is with our numbers. We have great participation numbers. So we have 3 teams, junior high girls, junior high boys, high school girls, high school boys. We have 3 teams, and that's up to anywhere from 28 to 32 students out participating. And you put those students in a gym with 4 goals, it's tough when you only play 5-on-5 at a time, and when they go to the full court thing. So we would look at those. Our C-team boys practiced in the morning, minimum of 2 days a week. Early season it was more than that, but once they got into the season, it was 2 days a week, and they got the court time that they needed, and they showed improvement when we had games for them with that. So I'm not saying that would happen. We'd have to look at the schedule, but when it comes down to it, the board voted for the academic instruction going forward, and Ms. Wilson can go in more depth of what we're planning there, and going ahead and moving, keeping teachers in the classroom and providing more academic opportunities for our students.
We might as well keep this here, Mike, as pertains to that. What data specifically indicate the extra hour needed for the junior high? What data was collected and how was it analyzed?
So we give assessments every year. We give the MAP assessment every year, and we give state assessments every year. That data is looked at by teacher groups, by the grade levels that they teach. It's also looked at by our building leadership team, and it's looked at over time. Of course, we also look at, our teachers meet every other week in teams of the grade levels they teach, and discuss grades and how students are doing in their classrooms as well. When we look at that data over time, we see that we need to get better in the area of literacy. And that just keeps coming up over and over again. So we plan to, at this moment right now, we would like to add a reading class in for the extra academic hour for our 7th grade students, where they would have an additional 55 minutes to work on literacy skills. And so that would have them taking a language arts class and a reading class in their 7th grade year. In their 8th grade year, we'd like to add either a semester of each course or every other day. We haven't decided for sure. Still talking with our building leadership team about this. But we would like to add in a class that includes both social emotional skills and literacy for part of the time, and then PE for the other part of the time. And so that's what we're doing in the junior high to help build literacy based upon those pieces of data that I just spoke of.
Jared, you might as well answer this because I've heard you answer it before. What has the district done recently for ag classes and students?
Well, if you're talking about like what have we purchased welding machines for them recently. Our ag department, they go to competitions regularly. This year is the first year that we created a partnership with Dodge City Community College. They send an instructor over here every day for 2.5 hours, and we have 9 students this semester, 10 last semester that worked on college level welding classes for qualifications. So that's been a really cool, it's been a cool addition for those students to really fill their junior and senior or senior year with something that's really meaningful to them and a life skill that they're going to use later on. In the ag classes, as you know, you may or may not know this, we have a new teacher this year, and so we're a little bit in transition. We brought this teacher out of retirement, and so he committed to us for a year when we had a late resignation in the end of July last year. So we brought a teacher out of retirement who's awesome and very excellent, but when he came to us, he made a commitment for a year, but wanted us to have the opportunity to keep our department alive and then get ahead of the game to hire earlier this year before everybody already had jobs. So, ag can look a lot of different ways and is based upon the different ways the students are driving. Right now in our ag program, our ag mech is really heavy. Our students are really interested in the shop and the mechanics and the welding and things like that. So that's why the focus has been there. We continue every year to look at the things that our students are interested in and try to provide the classes that they need to be successful for their next step.
I believe this is probably Chris or Stewart's. It's not really who made the decision, but the question is who made the decision to move the location of this 2-story weightlifting wrestling area from the west to the north? It'd probably be, it'd be the board, but you might explain why.
Well, originally we looked at it being off the north side of the band room, but the more we looked at it further, we felt it was important that all of the athletic facilities that is obviously what we're putting in needed to be closer together. And also by doing that, it did eliminate the need for another elevator, and that we could utilize the current elevator that's already in place, which frees up about anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000, which allowed us then to look at expanding some other areas. We were able to take that additional money and put it into the current weight room area to facilitate a lecture, a tiered lecture hall plus another classroom that would be available, and then frees up some additional academic space in other parts of the building. So that was the primary reason when we brought this to the board. We discussed it, and they approved it to proceed in that manner, in that direction.
I'm not sure who this is going to be for, but is there room for a sports building on the south side of the high school? Parking lot would not have to be torn out to the south.
We weren't tasked to look at that, but I think there is ample room for that to occur. However, again, it separates the athletic portions of it separates the athletic portions of of the facility, and that, you know, additional staff would have to be moved back and forth to, you know, to monitor the activities of both spaces at that point. So, again, we weren't tasked to investigate that, but to answer your question, yes, there is space available, but we feel like it's more efficient use of space to put it to where it's currently being proposed.
A wrestling and weightlifting building by the tennis courts could provide drinking water, toilets, and shelter to the tennis and track infield participants. Has this possibility been discussed, and why has it not been proposed?
It's been important as we've looked at it, as the board and us have communicated, to keep the addition connected to the current facility, so we don't have students walking outside. And so that would be why it wouldn't be south of the building across the parking lot. You know, when the question said not tearing out the parking lot, that would mean it would be across the parking lot, or across the street. We want to keep students, again, where we can maximize our class time, and within the locked doors of our building as much as we can.
Well, our current locker rooms are, and everybody would dress on that, and so it's a time saver and just keeping everybody in the same area. They would have to dress and then go down through all the academic halls, and then, you know, the 10-minute bell, and they'd have to come all the way back through so it's a time saver, and we wouldn't build locker rooms down on that facility. So that kind of answers the first question that we had. Read the next question about the tennis courts and restrooms.
Basically, a wrestling or weightlifting building by the tennis courts to provide drinking water, toilets, and shelter to the tennis and track and field participants.
With the idea of ADA compliant and restrooms at the football stadium and the concession stand, that would be a multiple place for even at the tennis courts. They could go and use the restrooms there now. We wouldn't have to leave these doors open for the tennis to come up here for that. So we could actually have a concession for our tennis meets, which we host quite a few tennis meets here. So that's kind of the idea of why that place and where we put it there. So that would be accessible within a reasonable walking distance from the tennis courts.
If we save the money, what project would we do first?
That would be up to the board at that time. I mean, we have to reevaluate. Original, what Mr. Stegler was saying, it was the kitchen, which is going to be done this summer with the Winfield Mark, the weight room second, and then the stadium. Original ranking.
This is the last question I have. I'll come around if you guys have some more questions. What happens if the bond fails to pass?
Right, it's totally up to the board after it goes. The needs are still the needs according to our board at the current time, and so they would have to go back and reevaluate what the needs are and how we can address them to get better.
Anybody have any more questions that they've written down? I told somebody I was just going to make them run up there, but I got to come down here. Safety concerns for kids walking for food and fellowship, teachers' aid, and Blue Jay buddies. Not real sure what the question is, but.
Yeah, we have those concerns every day. Well, we always have concerns when students are leaving the building. We do have those events, and at this time we haven't stopped that. you know, in this day and age, you know, times have changed in education, as you know. And all you have to do is go around an elementary school in the morning. All of those students that used to walk to school a block or two are now driving, which is why we have so many issues with transportation cars around. So those concerns are there. Those also will move up into the high school, and the more we can limit the students outside the building, the better off we are. You know, so it's a balance between what kind of programs do we want our kids to participate in, or what kind of opportunities do we want our kids to have versus safety concerns. In regard to attaching or building a building outside versus attaching it, I think it's pretty simplistic that if we can keep our students in school the majority of the day, then that will minimize our safety concerns somewhat. I don't know if that was a question or not, but yes, those are concerns. They're concerning to me every day. Currently, at lunchtime, we don't allow students to drive. So only the students that are within walking distance go home to lunch. That probably is a concern, but one of the things that we do minimize is we don't allow students to drive at lunch. The one thing about going to fellowship, what's that called? Fellowship, food and fellowship, which is at the Methodist Church, Greg. One thing about that is they're going as a group, they're not going individually. In regard to Blue Jay Buddies, sometimes they go alone, probably. And sometimes they're in groups. They should be in groups, probably, if possible.
This is probably for you, Stuart. Who's the architect and what is their reputation? What other projects have they designed? Is this cost per square foot similar to other recently constructed projects?
Well, we're a long-established architectural firm in Garden City. We've been in business since 1971. School construction is our main source of income, I guess you might say. We've done a number of facilities around western Kansas. Probably the most recent one that you might be familiar with that's similar in nature to yours is the Scott City project that was just recently completed about this past year. Again, you know, we've put together an estimate for the bond issue, and I do stress the word estimate. The long and short of it is we have $4.395 million to get all of these projects within that budget. And so, you know, if one project, say the addition to the high school, should come in a little cheaper, then some of that money that was dedicated to that portion could be moved over to allow maybe some other things to happen at the football stadium or vice versa. So again, you know, we're bound by the total number of dollars that have been allocated to the bond issue. That's by state statute. We aren't allowed to spend any more than that, and so it's part of our duty to make sure that we can do the projects within the dollars allotted. The cost of each of the facilities, I mean, we do have quite a bit of recent experience related to what we think things are going to cost, and we've tried to be realistic in those cost estimates. I know there's been some other talk out there about other projects and what those might cost. I can't really comment on those because I've not seen any drawings related to them, but I will say that the construction that will be added on to the high school, or that's being proposed to the high school, is going to be materials that are very similar to what the materials that you've used on your high school. From the outside, it's our intent to try to make it look like it was a part of the original high school project. So someone driving by 5 years from now won't look at it and say, oh, they've added on to that building. So it's our intent to try to make it as compatible with the existing facilities as we can.
And I'll kind of attest to your firm too. I did a lot of plans with you guys, and boy, they're very detailed. They're way too detailed for me, but they're fantastic. What is the procedure for needs requests and how are they prioritized? If teachers and or students have a need or want to know, how should they request it? As in like uniforms, clubs, classes, stuff like that.
Okay, this is my first year as being athletic director here, and uniforms and whatnot. I'm in charge of the athletics and activities. We sat down with our group and basically we put down, wants and needs. Basically, there really is no, what I found in my records that was left to me, no rotation on uniforms or equipment, things like that. We felt that we were a little behind the times in certain areas. What we decided when we took the job that we would go ahead and start with the longest running. Ms. Nestor has records downtown, but as far as a spreadsheet of when the last person was and having everything in front of us right now, that's what we're currently developing. It was 6 years ago that our volleyball team didn't have any uniforms for that, so we purchased that. Football was 6 years old, so we were on the list this year. As far as other groups and needs like that for band, our band is growing, so that's going to be an issue. Mr. Ralston didn't know that he was not going to have enough uniforms this year, but now we know that. I believe that is something that we can look at. What we'd like to do once we get into that rotation, we really not, we don't have to be the Oregon Ducks and have 7 different uniforms, but we would like to go into like a stock uniform where we can reutilize the pants and jerseys and things like that. And then, maybe change our tops and whatnot. That'll considerably save on costs of uniforms and things like that. As far as our, what we call like our non-revenue sports, like our tennis and our golf, and things like that, or sports that we don't take a gate for, in that, they have been not addressed. We helped the cheerleaders out. Their warm-ups were 12 or 13 years old, since the last time they got that. So we helped them with new pom-poms and warm-ups in that. With our non-revenue sports, cheerleading would be one of them in that activity. Tennis, golf. Sometimes you just don't know who's all going to be out for that sport, especially the incoming freshmen, because junior high don't necessarily have those sports in that. And so instead of stockpiling a uniform with a bunch of, and you only have 10 kids out and you have 20 uniforms type of deal, those coaches have told me that they would really like just to go on a year-to-year basis. That's where we've talked to our booster club a little bit about helping in that area with those sports that might only have the 20 to 25 out total at a max, and maybe helping in that area where we can get a fitted shirt or a collared shirt for golf in that. Our girls tennis numbers are really, really strong, and we did purchase uniforms for them, but not all our young ladies might not fit into them the next year because of growth and things like that, so that is a concern. Our guys tennis team, they want just common t-shirts, and wear a common short, so that issue is being addressed. Most of the clubs are forensics and things like that. The kids buy their own t-shirts. Well, that's our booster club is going to be an activities booster club, and we want to start helping with that so we can eliminate some of the costs or lower the costs for some of those programs as well, to where it might be a $15, $20 t-shirt type of deal, and we might be able to pay for half or whatnot and look into that. The district has been very generous in providing the needs that we need. as long as we're communicating and letting them know what's going on in the board, let them know what's up next in that, and so that's what we did starting last fall, and throughout this year they know what's next on the agenda. We purchased new football jerseys this year. Some of our, when you're talking about getting things started in that kind of budget, I went to all my sponsors, I went to all my coaches, and we have to, this is what I need to run my program from day one. But we also, this is what I want maybe later on. So we have our needs that we have to get, and some are bigger than others. I mean, tennis needs 6 cases of tennis balls because every match that they go to, they have to take so many cans of tennis balls. And I don't want them running to Walmart the night before, purchasing and turning receipts in. That just makes Ms. Dude's job. So we budgeted that, and these are our wants. Now, I don't want to find 20 tennis balls after practice every night picked up type of deal. They have to take care of that. So that in a nutshell is how we have addressed the needs for our academics, or excuse me, our athletics and our club activities with that. Constant communication with the coach or sponsor and itemizing and put them on a spreadsheet and getting them in. We want to go on like a 5-year rotation with the revenue sports and the non-revenue and activities. Look at that and try to get our booster club and activities to maybe help out in that area.
I would like to add that it is thank you, Coach Sharts. But we'd like to keep the questions to the bond issue, where this is coming out of a different budget, I believe. The wind farm gifts are deemed by the board right now to be used for capital outlay. Is that correct? And so we'll just try to stay on task here so we can get out of here in a short amount of time.
This question I can actually kind of answer. What about the turf football field and extra lanes on the track? That was all taken out of the budget, or out of the bond issue. The track and football field renovations, they were considered by the board, but the budgeted cost of the renovations did not fit into wind farm gift budget, so it was taken totally out. So it is no longer in the bond, and that is one reason why we are having this informational meeting, because there's still information out there that is incorrect, but it is not in the bond. Next question, what are the current mills at?
45 for the school.
45 for the school?
45 mills. I'm sorry, also on that last question that Mr. Sharts answered, I think they asked about requisition forms. Jared, you might answer on that for the students. I know that's not part of the bond issue, but there are requisition forms that any student or administrator can get in, right?
Right, so if teachers have things they need or want, they fill out requisition forms and bring them to me, and we talk about it, and if it's decided that they need it, then I sign it and send it over to the district office, and then if it's signed there, then it's purchased. You know, we talk to our staff a lot about, we believe it's our job to equip them to do their job well, and so that's how we make those decisions. Is this going to help you in student achievement or whatever task you're trying to accomplish at the time, and if so, it's my job to equip you to do your job well.
Next question, do the current projected costs cover demolition costs?
Yes, they do. We have dollars in there to remove not only the concrete portion of the parking lot, but also the rocks and lowering the elevation of that parking lot. So all that is included. Like I say, we've got X number of dollars to get these projects into budget, and that's part of our task, is to make sure that that happens.
Okay, this is a kind of a paragraph. If the payments from the turbines ended in 2032, for example, when does the current bond end, and how much would the mills drop on the current tax roll for the elementary school addition? Also, Mike, I mean, there's other parts of this question. If the payments end in 2032, would our current bond be paid off? And also, what is the difference between the bond? I'm not real sure this
Okay.
is.
So I think the question is the elementary bond, when does it end? And it ends about 32 also. So if it was a 20-year run out, it would go off at the same time. If they quit paying the windmills after 20 years, it would be the same. It's running about, right over 5, a little over 5. When we have a bondsman, a different bondsman that's running, that did the elementary, and they send us runouts periodically, estimates as they watch the market and watch what it's doing. And at one point, we had there was some extra cash in that bond fund, and in order to stabilize mill levies, we kind of pulled some of the cash down a little bit. I don't want to confuse you over all that, but anyhow, so our mill levy had dropped down in the 4s, and I got a letter pretty quickly from the bondsman saying, as we analyze your bond going out, it looks like it needs to stay around 5 or slightly above to pay out over time. So it's going to stay about 5. So in 32, when it drops off, it would be 5 years difference. Very similar to what the mills would be on this project. You know, there's a little leeway in there. You see, I can't give you a specific answer because things can happen over the course of that time. You know, that bond can be refinanced after 11 years, I believe it is. So if you refinance, then it could change the interest rate, which may change the payments, which would change the mill levies, etc. There's just other things that can happen. But everything being equal, it should run about 5 mills, right in that ballpark. And then in 2032, it would drop off, so that'd be 5 mills.
Mike, go ahead and keep the microphone. The introduction that I read off, they say was incorrect. This really isn't a question, but the board vote for the bond question was not unanimous. It was 5-2, as my understanding was unanimous.
That's not correct. It was a 7-0 vote to take this to a vote.
Anybody else have any more note card questions? Okay, we are going to pass around the microphone. We're going to give everybody 2 minutes, and we're going to keep this, trying to keep her short, simple, sweet. We're going to give everybody that wants to comment 2 minutes. You're faster than that. I seen you in basketball. Yeah. Why were the voters not given the option to vote on the proposals as separate bond elections?
Oh, that vote might have been 5-2. It could have been done that way, but traditionally, the more things you can package together, the easier it is to get the project rolling, and there's the major savings, if there is just in the what's the term I'm looking for when they bring in all the equipment? Mobilization. That's where all the savings is, because each project is separate. When we did the long range planning and whatnot, like I said, the priority was first the kitchen. The next thing in line was the weights and wrestling, and then the third thing was the stadium. It's kind of interesting that, you know, when you look at the whole project, different people want different parts, and we understand that, but we don't want to get into a battle about what parts different people want. We want to do what we feel is best for all, for the school, for the students, and for the citizens of Cimarron. When we look at our facilities, the needs are there, and we had many meetings prior to getting to even to the ranking, and we would have our board members, we'd go around and talk about it, and they would say, all of that needs done. How we're gonna get it done, who knows? If it all needs done, now's the time. So what we did was, or what I did was, is try to come up with an amount that would fit within the finances that Cimarron USD 102 had available without putting extra mills on the taxpayers, because that's a dirty word in the school business, and I know that. And one of the very first meetings I had with the Rotary Club a year ago, I sat out and told them about the kitchen project and the weights and the stadium. And I said, the last thing I want to do is be the one that raises your taxes. That's not what I want to do. But the students of Cimarron deserve more than they have. They deserve to have some things that are very equal to the rest of the kids in the state of Kansas, not in many places. The Cimarron community deserves an upgrade on their stadium. That stadium has served us well. It was built in whatever the 30s or whatever it was. It's time to upgrade. It's good for the community, it's great for the school, and they go hand in hand. That's why we put it together. We need all of it. If we didn't need it all, we wouldn't have put it on there. We didn't put, these aren't wants, these are needs. This is needs for the kids, this is needs for your school. And I truly believe that Cimarron, the school, Cimarron, the community deserves this, the students deserve this. That's why we put it together.
Very good answer. What is the amount the school district has already spent on the development and promotion of the bond and the plans for the improvements?
So the school, I think we got a bill for postage the other day, maybe a couple $100, and we did a few brochures that you haven't got yet. That's what we've spent.
Any more questions written down? Okay, like I said, we're going to give everybody 2 minutes. And, if you have like a book of notes or something like that, you go over 2 minutes. Somebody says, hey, should you take my time or he can take my time? Just pass it off to them. Okay? Anybody want to grab the microphone? Oh, no, don't be shy. Anybody have any questions? Okay.
I just hate to drive 3 hours and not do something. My name is Steve Sjogren, as was mentioned. My company is George K. Baum and Company. We're an investment banking firm, and we are retained by your Board of Education to help with the election proceedings, the legalities, and if voters approve, we will structure and market the final bond issue for the improvements. I wanted to share at least one thing, if nothing else. When we started this process, the Federal Reserve Board was on record as saying, we plan to continue to raise rates, and they do that to cool inflation in the economy. And they raised rates a couple of times back last year in 2018. We expected one in December, and yet they changed course. Evidently, their movement earlier cooled the inflation fears, and now they're on record. In fact, I think somebody mentioned they just come out and said they're on a neutral stance. They're not going to raise interest rates like they were. But we estimated, you saw, 4.25% for your financing. We did a similar issue in December for Oxford schools. It was a $6 million bond issue. I think they're a similar credit to you, USD 102, and we sold those bonds at 3.26%. It was a 20-year issue, just like we're talking about here. And I think they're an A-rated underlying credit school district. That's what I expect for you. 3.26, that's about 1% below. The first year, the interest cost would be about $44,000 less. I would say if that continues, and if voters approve, we issue bonds, probably the interest cost will be $350,000 less on the loan. What's that do to the mill levy? If we needed a mill levy, it drops about 0.4 of a mill. So instead of what was our number? 5.63, I think would be closer to 5.2. And once again, I don't want to start a rhubarb, but you know, the wind farm, you are so lucky. The question was asked, what happens if the bond fails? Well, nothing would happen, and that's a shame. Because you have a real opportunity to make significant improvements to your schools without a tax increase if you believe in the viability of wind farms in the future. They were given property tax abatement to get that industry started. I was 10 minutes late coming, later than I thought I'd be here, because I got behind one of those 90-foot windmill blades coming up here. They're still building them, they're improving them. I think it's a viable industry. Because of that exemption, the wind farms feel a responsibility, I think especially to support local schools. And so they do that. I call it, to me, it's an in lieu of tax payment. They want to be good neighbors. They want to be good businesses. They don't want to get a free ride. I think those payments will be there. I don't see them tearing down any windmills and just leveling them, putting them out of business. I think a possibility would be, as that industry grows, that they may change at the state and put them on the tax rolls when they're a viable industry. If that happens, you will have your tax base increase. You know, I don't know how many windmills you've got in USD 102, but each of those, I've been told, are $1 million project to build, install, construct. If they're assessed initially at 25%, which businesses are, each one of them would add $250,000 to your tax base. So I think my feeling is, I can't guarantee anything, what the future is for that industry or any other, but I think more than likely, if they lost that property tax exemption, you would get them on the tax rolls, and they would not only help pay this bond with their assessed valuation, they'd help pay the other bond through 2032. So I want to make that statement very, very important. I think there's an opportunity. Interest rates are relatively low. Many districts would love to be in your boat and be able to make a significant investment, improve opportunities for kids, improve your stadium for your patrons, solve handicapped access problems, safety problems, and theoretically not raise taxes, property taxes for the school district. So that's the way I look at it. I want to clarify that. But I wanted to bring you that good news. I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to sell your bonds, if voters approve, 1% below what we estimated for the numbers here.
Tell you what, that's always good news, really, if you go below. If there's any questions, get the microphones down here.
Well, I was wondering, when will the weight room be finished?
I think if you look in the brochures, it talks about a year from now, right? One thing I'd address, some of the comments I've heard is, or concern is that we're taking all of the money that we get and tying it up. If you looked at the figures that they showed on the screen, the estimated bond payment at 4.2 is $341,000 a year, and our annual payments are $390. So there's $50,000 cushion there, for lack of a better term. But what I would also tell you is that as a school board, they were also concerned about everything else that we have in our facilities and needs, whether it be roofing, renovations, some things that we still need to do in our elementary, like windows or just stuff like that. How do we do that? Well, the thing that you have to remember is that the bond fund, or the gift fund, is a gift fund, and that's, for lack of a better term, extra. We still have capital outlay funds that we purchase other things from. So as you look around the things, and I hope you get to tour the facilities, look at the auxiliary gym that we did, the auxiliary gym track, that whole project, over a couple $100,000. The parking lots, $500,000. Those are big dollar amounts. We did all of that without touching the gift fund. We did that through our capital outlay fund, which at current rates, we are assessing 4 mills of capital outlay each year, which is worth about $250,000 a year for us. So I want to ease your concern, if you have a concern that we don't have money to do the other things that we need to do, because we do. The gift fund is extra.
While you're running the microphone out there, I do want to make a comment on the when construction starts for the football stadium on the last football game of the year. As soon as I call the last play, I'm breaking out my sledgehammer and I'm starting right there. Plain and simple. You have a question there?
I have 2 questions. Okay, so on this handout that I got, it said we've gotten gifts already in the past 5 years that average $394,000. Maybe I don't understand, but where is that money went? What did we use that for?
Okay, we have, in the fund, so in the 3 years I've been here, we've spent 0 out of that, but prior to that, we did buy a couple charter buses, and there's just a few other things that they purchased. So most of it's been saved. Since then, we'll be at about $2 million this year when we get our payment. So a lot of it's right there. And that money is being spent to renovate the kitchen and some plumbing at the elementary.
Was that not part of the original bond that we did before? I thought that was in our last bond.
It was not. So the kitchen at the elementary, so we did an elementary wing, okay? But the kitchen is the original kitchen from the building. The other issue that we have over there is there's 2 plumbing mains that are on the original building from the 60s. So the new wing got a new main, but we still have 2 original mains, and those both need replaced along with the plumbing. We have issues, and they run down the west wing and then up over the kitchen and down into the locker rooms. So that's all being replaced too.
The other question I had was, who were the various stakeholders that were surveyed for this needs assessment? Whose input was put into the needs assessment? Because I'm a parent of a junior high student. I don't recall him talking about being surveyed. I know when we did elementaries, we were surveyed a lot for different things, like the safe sidewalks. As a parent, I don't recall seeing any surveys or any kind of input from the community. Who did the surveys or the needs assessment?
We did new surveys. We had board retreats, so your board members that are elected by the public for that reason did that, and then of course they got information from the administration and teachers, etc. We didn't do a survey.
So your stakeholders were the board members and then teachers?
The board members are elected by the
Right.
public. They represent the public.
Okay, but it was board members and teachers, just curious.
The
Okay.
the administration was involved, obviously.
Okay.
Any more questions out there? Raise your hand. Mike's going to be running like crazy, hopefully. What? Any more questions, everybody? All right. Well, this is going to conclude the informational meeting. If you guys, if you have some more questions, we're going to have some of the guys answering questions down at the Video 99. We're going to have some refreshments down there and just kind of chill out there for a while. But I want to thank you guys for coming. Oh yeah. If you guys do want a tour of the facility, and I don't know about the football field or not, but like the weight room and everything, you guys will kind of give them a tour down there if you guys want to. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, wait.
Also, you might mention if somebody pops up a question in the middle of the night, there'll be a similar meeting, I think, in Ensign next week.
Yes, there is another meeting next Wednesday night at Ensign.
I think
6:30 or 6?
6:30 and Ensign.
Ensign lets Cimarron people into their community, don't they?
Yeah, once in a while. I can drive through there like crazy.
We also have the website, the email, Facebook. Call me personally, call any of us or whatever. I mean, we're more than willing, and if we don't know the answer, we'll get it to the people that can answer it, get it out to you.
Thank you guys for coming.